Pledge allegiance. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Trustee Barbian?
Present.
Trustee Sal?
Here.
Trustee Unger?
Here.
Trustee Beckmeyer?
Here.
Trustee McFall?
Here.
Trustee Olet?
Here.
President Zabrowski?
Here. Looking for approval of minutes, regular board meeting, March 18th, 2025.
I'd like to make a motion for the village board to approve the regular board meeting minutes, March 18th, 2025. We've all had them prior to this meeting and a chance for review.
Second the motion?
Any discussion? No? All right. Roll call, please.
Trustee Barbian?
Aye.
Trustee Sal?
Aye.
Trustee Unger?
Aye.
Trustee Beckmeyer?
Aye.
Trustee McFall?
Aye.
Trustee Olet?
Aye.
President Zabrowski?
Aye, thank you. I do have to leave at this point, so I'm going to ask that you guys appoint Trustee Barbian to run the rest of the meeting, if that's all right with you guys. Do I have to
Make a
vote for
motion
that?
to,
Motion.
make a motion to elect Ron Barbian as president. Second.
All right. Any discussion at all?
Yes.
I would just say for this meeting,
For
not
this-
election. That's the expression.
Didn't know if anyone would catch that.
I don't know if she has that power.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Barbian?
Abstain.
Trustee Sal?
Aye.
Trustee Unger?
Aye.
Trustee Beckmeyer?
Aye.
Trustee McFall?
Where are you going?
Trustee Olet?
Aye.
President Zabrowski?
Aye, thank you. If you recall, it's when the meeting was Monday and then we moved it.
Oh, yes.
So I have a conflict, so. Thank you, guys. If you could just catch me up tomorrow, everything will be awesome. All right, have a good meeting. Thanks.
Good night.
Thanks.
Good night.
Yeah.
Thank you, board.
Motion to adjourn?
Yeah, I just got appointed president, Donna. So
Yes.
That's pretty cool.
Yes, I did.
Okay, first item is the public hearing and action items. Whenever is most practical for the board and the persons interested in the public hearing items, the board will act on the public hearing immediately following the conduct of public hearings rather than later in the agenda. So we have a couple of items here for public hearing. One of them is the recreate portions of the zoning code related to temporary outdoor retail displays and sales as presented. The other item, and you can speak on either one of these, ordinance is repealing section 17-363 regulation of tourist homes and recreating and renaming section 17-363 short-term rentals as presented. So this is a public hearing and you can come up and speak on any one of those particular items. Public hearing is open.
Joe Russ, 1600 West Shadow Drive, New Berlin, representing 559997 Basswood Street. Regarding having temporary outdoor sales and displays, I find it odd that Greendale is one community where you go to Walmart or to gas station and you can't get an LP tank for summer grilling. Good example. I don't see why that shouldn't be allowed. It's not like you're going to have rows of tanks down here in the village. They're usually done at gas stations and places like Walmart. Regarding the regulation of tourist homes, a little bit of history on that. A number of years ago, you were doing a project here in the village, and a bunch of trustees were saying, oh, it'd be so nice to have bed and breakfasts here in town. And I told them, you can't do that. And they're like, yes, we can. I said, no, you can't. I said, have you looked at your ordinances? And it stated, and I think it was the fifth one at the time, of unapproved uses for a Greendale home was for bed and breakfast. So after that meeting, I went home and I found that, and I sent it off to all the trustees. And President Hermes was here at the time. And that was one thing, I think, from the time I brought it up to the time it was finalized to be approved, was amazingly about 4 weeks. I've never seen the village board move that quickly on anything. But you guys, or your predecessors, wanted it. Well, now you've got it. Be careful what you wish for, because now you got to deal with it. As a previous building inspector said, there was no regulations you could put on to limit the number of Airbnbs you had at the time. I think his comment was, you could have the whole village be Airbnbs if you wanted. So a little bit of history on that. I've got mixed feelings on them. Versus Airbnbs versus regular B&Bs. Regular B&Bs require to have an owner on site. Airbnbs do not. Or in residence, I believe. I believe they have to be in the same address. And that's what I think part of your problems are coming in. You don't have constant, steady people here. So either way, they're going to be likely be short-term for like a weekend or so forth. But yeah, about 10 years ago, this can of worms was opened, and that's the way they decided your predecessors, or maybe a few of you decided to open it, but now you got to deal with it.
Anyone else with comments in regards to either of these two items?
Jim?
Mr. Birmingham.
Jim?
Hi, Jim Birmingham, 7325 Edge Hill Road, Greendale. Here on behalf of the Historical Society, Vice President. I just have a comment about the housing situation that you're talking about. We have, since we've owned our house, had a 2-day rental necessity in our house, so you cannot rent it for a day. Although we don't think on our end, at least I don't, that the village should get involved in that end. How I believe. I think that most of the care people with these houses take care of that, but I understand the necessity for you to talk about it. So I just say that if you're looking at having a minimum house that is no less than no more than 2, no less than 2, I should say. And we have had that going since we started. We're on one of those roads on our road, which is a dead end, kind of. People have to come in and out, and so those are things I think you need to watch. So I appreciate that you're discussing this tonight, but just be care of what you're wishing for. So thank you.
Thanks, Jim. Good evening, Greg.
Greg Sylvester, 5902 Broad Street. As far as the stores and the stuff, I do believe also that they should be able to have the outside displays to some extent, propane and so forth. Be really nice if I could run right over here to Walmart or run down to Sendik's to be able to get a tank when my grill runs out or something else. The way it is now, otherwise okay, is Harry's Hardware open? No, they're closed for the day. Okay, now I got to go and run into Greenfield somewhere, or run down up into Franklin to Menards, and I don't see any reason why not. It's not in the downtown here. I mean, it'd be different if it were down here. I understand trying to keep a certain aesthetic going here. And then as far as the home rentals, the Airbnbs and so forth, as a landlord, I'm seriously considering, if my tenants leave, to go that route as an Airbnb. One of the reasons is with finding good people to rent has become more difficult. Typically, people who rent an Airbnb, they're not going to destroy things. A number of people I've talked to over the past few years, it seems that renters now, maybe because of the high rent, think they're entitled to do whatever they want, and in many cases have created damage. So I don't know what to say there, but if you want to limit or control the number of Airbnbs, that's fine by me. I guess it would be up to you to figure out who can have one, who can't, and where they can be. So, thank you.
Thanks, Greg. Any other residents have any comments on these topics? I'm going to close the public hearing. Public hearing is closed. Bringing to the board now the first item, BOT 2534. Discuss the necessary action to repeal and recreate section 17368 related to temporary outdoor retail displays and sales, PC 2501. Some background on this.
Yeah, so last fall, the village board referred this item to the plan commission to review the village's ordinances related to outdoor retail displays and sales. Similar to some of the comments we just heard, the board's concern discussed was that our current ordinance may be a bit too restrictive. We don't allow for propane tanks. We also have a annual permit requirement in order for a business to participate in outdoor displays and sales. As a side note to that, we have granted certain businesses the ability to do outdoor retail displays and sales, such as Sendix, through their special use permit that was granted to them. So that's specifically allowed for outdoor displays. But in the absence of that approval through the special use or other zoning, a business would need to get this permit. We took it to the Plan Commission. The Plan Commission had initial discussion December 4th, agreed with let's change it from an annual permit to a one-time permit that a business would need to get. That would be less burdensome for business to only have to get it just the one time. And then also that we would allow for businesses to display and sell propane tanks with the caveat that they would need to submit a site plan showing kind of where and how they're going to be storing these items so that staff could do a review to make sure it's done safely. So the village attorney put that into an ordinance format, and Plan Commission subsequently recommended approval of that. And so now it's in front of you guys today with that ordinance that would change it from an annual permit to a one-time permit, and then it would also allow for propane tanks with that site plan issue. And then the one other thing I was going to mention was that in doing some research, we did note that Walmart in its development agreement specifically prohibits any outdoor sales unless they do get a special use permit that allows for it. And now we have since changed special use permits to conditional use permits. But in this case, I think we would, if they did come forward with wanting to display or sell items, we would have them go through this amended outdoor display and sales permit process. So with that, staff would recommend approval of the ordinance that's in your packet that makes the requested changes by the Plan Commission.
Thank you. I'll make a motion for the village board to approve the ordinance to repeal and recreate portions of the zoning code related to temporary outdoor retail displays and sales as presented by the manager.
Second.
Second, thank you. Matt, questions, comments on this topic? Trustee Unger?
So, just so I'm clear, under this proposal, so I'll just use Burlington Coat Factory, whatever they're called now. They would have to come to get an outdoor retail sales permit one time, to put clearance items outside, shoes, whatever they want. And there would never be another renewal or review. It would just be one done, and they would never have to come back to the village to renew that. Is that what this is proposing?
Yeah, understanding that what they get approved for, they would have to be consistent with that in the future. So if we're saying we would like to be able to sell items from time to time at this location, which is granted, I mean, it has to be either on their property, they have permission, but they would get approval, and yeah, if they're consistent with that in the future, they wouldn't need to come back for an annual permit each time they do it.
So I guess I'm not comfortable with relaxing the restrictions. And it says the existing permit requirements should be relaxed. I don't see them as being an issue. Tonight was the first I've heard from residents kind of wanting propane tanks. In my opinion, propane tanks outside of business can look kind of tacky. The cages can be rusty. They take up space, on a sidewalk. I don't really care for the look. People like our community because it's tidy. So those are just my thoughts.
Other trustees? Trustee Fechtmeyer, please.
I see what Trustee Unger is saying, but I think they have to propose, submit with their permit what that's going to look like, and I think in that respect, we could police that if it gets all rusty or whatever. I know Sendix has wood outside, I've seen that, they've got a big, I don't think it looks bad.
And there are ice
Wood
machines
and
outside
ice
too. There are
machines.
ice machines already out there.
Yeah, so does Peters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think, obviously, if it gets unsightly,
We could always.
we have recourse for that, correct?
We have a code inspector.
Right.
Trustee Sell, do you have anything to weigh in on this?
No, I do understand what Trustee Younger's point is, and my understanding, the manager can correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's what Colleen just mentioned, like, if they are not in compliance with their permit, where we would have to approve what they're going to be selling and how it's going to look, then we could come back and say, well, we're revoking your license because you're not complying with it.
Yeah, that's correct. There are some pre-existing standards that are in that ordinance section that talks about adverse impact, interference with surrounding development, adequate facilities, traffic congestion. So there's a bunch of different standards that were already in this ordinance that they would still need to comply with. This just changes it from a one-time or annual permit to it changes from an annual permit to a one-time permit.
Yeah, and then the last thing really quick on the propane tanks, I believe we are having the inspector approve the site plans and locations of those propane tank cages to ensure safety. So that was something that I think was important and got everyone comfortable with allowing that.
Correct.
Yep, that's correct.
Other comments?
But this isn't a license. It isn't a regular license renewal, correct?
Correct. As currently stands today, it is a temporary permit that is only good for a year.
Mhm.
The proposed ordinance changes it to a one-time permit that's good indefinitely. They would need to get a new permit if they were going to make any changes to what they were previously approved.
Or add something on?
Yep.
Yeah. I would like to make comment on this. I was a trustee that brought this particularly forward. Going back many, many, many years, I've heard comments off and on from Greendale residents, and I'm certainly one, same. I cook out all the time when it's nice weather, and it's frustrating that in Greendale, I can't even buy the propane. I can go to Hales Corners, Franklin, Oak Creek, New Berlin, Greenfield, Milwaukee, or any other community and not get that. Only Greendale. I can't get it, and that's a community I spend a lot of time, and other people in the community, to keep your dollars in Greendale. That's what we always say. I also went and talked to a couple of the managers at some of our sales locations, and they're like, yeah, we're at a disadvantage, because people will go up to the Walgreens in Franklin, buy a propane tank there, and they go, oh, might as well stop in and get some other stuff there too, whereas they would do that in Greendale. And from what I've seen, I don't see any looking junky in these other areas at all. And if they did, then we would address that. We already have some venues over on 76th Street that they just put stuff out for outdoor sales anyway, and they don't have any permits in that. And there are a couple in the mall, or strip mall across the street that does that across 76th Street. I don't want to name them that, but, because they're trying to get walk-by traffic, and people do buy. I think that we should monitor this and make sure it's not junky, obviously. I agree with what you're saying on that, but I think this is long overdue to make some of these changes and get in line for our businesses to be competitive with every other community and probably Wisconsin. So, that's my comment. Anything else? All right, we have a motion and we have a second. We have done discussion, so I would ask for a roll call.
Trustee Barbian?
Aye.
Trustee Sell?
Aye.
Trustee Unger?
No.
Trustee Beckmeyer?
Aye.
Trustee McFall?
Aye.
Trustee Olet?
Aye.
Next item. Discuss the necessary action to repeal Section 17363 regulation of tourist homes and recreate and rename Section 17363 short-term rentals, PC 2503. Background.
Yep, so on February 18th, staff brought to the village board's attention some potential inconsistencies between our zoning code and state statutes as they relate to the regulation of tourist homes, commonly referred to as short-term rentals or vacation rentals. In fact, the state statutes calls them short-term rentals, so we're recommending changing to that terminology to be consistent with the state. The village attorney took a look at it, put together some proposed revisions. There were some things that there are some things that we have to allow. We have to allow short-term rentals. We can't limit the number of short-term rentals that we have in the community. So our hands are tied in some ways of what can be regulated. But we did go through what we can and cannot regulate. There were some recommendations that came out of, we took it to Plan Commission, and Plan Commission made a recommendation. And so we have in your packet a proposed ordinance that was recommended. And just as a brief overview of the highlights of that proposed ordinance, so the current ordinance lacked any reference to that state statute, so we did add that to the definition section, referring to the state statutes. The current ordinance also included this owner residency restriction, so it said if the owner lives more than 40 miles away, they had to designate a local agent. While that may seem harmless, that was one thing that was challenged in another community. Our village attorney's office was involved in a case in a town of Holland where the judge ruled that wasn't consistent with the state statutes to require a local agent. So the new ordinance would remove that. There was also a clause that required the village manager to consider the neighborhood impact and to make a certain judgment call about whether a new short-term rental would have a neighborhood impact. That also ran counter to the state statutes and would be very subjective or difficult to enforce, so we do need to remove that. We changed the terminology, so there is a state license that's implemented or administered by the health department, so it's called the state or the health department's license. That is an annual license that, again, goes to the health department, actually goes through the Southwest Suburban Health Department, who we contract with. So there's that license, and then we're calling it a permit that would be issued by the Director of Inspection Services here at the village as a one-time permit. And so that would serve, and this is what we have been doing, this just kind of adds more clarity of what this process is. So this permit serves as more or less a simple occupancy permit. There is an inspection involved where our inspector goes through, makes sure it crosses the necessary boxes as far as meeting basic, safety measures. Paul is here; he can speak to any specifics on that or any questions about what would be involved with that. So again, there's still the health department license, and then the village permit through the inspections department. That would be a one-time permit. The new ordinance would add a revocation process. So what was lacking in the previous ordinance was any sort of process or due process for revoking a permit. There is now a minimum rental duration requirement. So this is something the state does allow you to have. And so there was I think a recommendation initially from the village board, which was then approved or agreed by the Plan Commission, which would set a minimum rental duration of 2 nights per stay. So you would not be able to rent an Airbnb or a short-term rental for 1 night. It has to be at least for 2 nights. And I think the reasoning for that would be avoiding sort of a one-night party house type of situation to encourage more of people coming for a weekend or at least more than the 1 night stay. We also have included a explicit prohibiting of use of RVs, campers, tents, or similar temporary lodging on the property. That's something that we are able to enforce. So those are the main highlights of the new ordinance. As a zoning ordinance, we did have the public hearing, so now it's before the village board for a decision. And like I mentioned, our Director of Inspection Services, Paul, is here if we have any discussion on the village permit itself and what that inspection could look like.
Thank you. Excellent update. I'm going to make a motion to approve the ordinance repealing section 17363, regulation of tourist homes, and recreating and renaming section 17363, short-term rentals, as presented, along with all the information that the manager have talked about here.
Second the motion.
Second.
Now it's open for questions, commentary. Trustee Alette, you had your hand up first?
Yep, I have talked to several people that own Airbnbs, and even though they said it really isn't worth it to have just one night, they usually do require 2 nights. They do not want us to enforce the minimum of 2 nights. They said on several occasions, emergencies in the family, like with people that maybe their hot water heater isn't working or their electric isn't working, they've needed to rent it over 1 night. Funerals, sometimes they'll need 1 night. Certain circumstances, and they do not, they're asking us not to make a minimum. Usually it is always 2 nights anyway, but I don't think that we should make a 2-night minimum.
Good point on that. Other questions, commentary? Trustee Feckmeyer?
That's a really good point. I didn't think of that, but even weddings. I mean, I'm going to a wedding in Lake Geneva in July, and we're renting an Airbnb for 1 night.
Right.
We're not having a party.
Yeah, they don't like to do it, but I mean, it definitely happens.
But just some background history since I've been a trustee. 5 years ago, this was a big concern of mine because they were popping up kind of quickly. So I did a search and a study, and there was 8 at the time, all in Greendale Originals. And that really worried me because I knew other people that said, oh, my daughter lives in Colorado and she's going to buy a Greendale Original and open an Airbnb and all this talk. But really what it comes down to is it's extremely a lot of work. So
Right.
Okay, great, to do that. So they come and go. We're still at 8, 5 years later. We were at 8 then, and probably half of those are new and the other half have gone by the wayside. People just turn them back into a long-term rental because of the work involved. So I do think maybe we should switch the 2-day. I do think that at least, as much as I don't like seeing any kind of rentals, and especially in all the originals, the short-term rentals, I will say the landlords, I think, do a much better job of keeping them in good condition, more so than the regular long-term rental landlords that we have in Greendale, which has been a problem much over the years, including, the house next door to where I live. It's got a really good landlord now, and she's taken really good care of it, but not in years past. And there's no inspection for that. I mean, when this landlord bought that property, one of the ceilings had caved in because they didn't fix a leak for 2 years, and at least this is inspected. Are they inspected, so our inspector just does it once, but are they inspected yearly? Are the health department inspector?
Yeah, so the health department is doing kind of more of a sanitation type of inspection. If they see something, they will report it to Paul. They'll be in contact through that process. But they have kind of their own list of things. They are looking for a smoke detector, but they aren't looking for, safe ingress, egress. They aren't looking at correct number of bedrooms, safe living quarters, those types of things in the same way that Paul would be looking at it. So there would be eyes going there, I think, annually through the health department, though.
And that 40
Can I talk about the 1 night limit, because that was discussed at length at the Plan Commission. The reason that we want to do that is to prevent, as Manager Hawes said, party houses, and to support the full-time neighbors that live next to these rentals. And in the cases of, a funeral or something, emergency comes up, if the people that are renting them now are renting them for 2 nights minimum, but they have to make exceptions, having owned an Airbnb before, what would happen is they'd get a message from the person and they'd ask, hey, can you make any exception to this? And I don't think that Chief Rosenau has the time to go to every Airbnb and say, hey, are you here for 1 night, or how many nights are you here for? So I think the people that blow the whistle on people that violate this are going to be neighbors who are like, hey, this is a recurring issue. These people are obnoxious and loud, and I can't quietly enjoy my own home. So I think that if there's a funeral, or if, Colleen and Randy could get crazy at 1 night in Lake Geneva, I don't know, but I'm imagining they'll probably, respect the neighbors there I think this is more of a tool for what could become a nuisance house if they continue to rent them for one night, because you can get more money for it. So it can be lucrative if you don't care about the condition of your place inside. So I know I would support keeping the two-night minimum. If there were exceptions for the examples you mentioned, I can't imagine we would even be able to identify those unless they were misbehaving and upsetting the neighbors, in which case we'd have a tool in our tool belt here to shut down that short-term rental.
Trustee Olet?
Another person said to me too that, I mean, they don't make a killing off of these. I mean, they're really not making a lot of money. And they do it more of a service to the community for people, a lot of families that come back here that have moved away. And she said if it was a 2-night minimum versus the 1, they can just go right over to the Hampton in Franklin for 1 night and she's going to lose that stay. And I don't think that we should say, okay, well, we can make exceptions. It's either going to be 1 night or 2 nights. I don't agree with that. I say let's not make a minimum.
It's not been a problem thus
Right.
far.
And if it
That's why
does
I'm thinking
become a
it's not been a
problem,
problem.
then, right, then we would change it, but I'm not for it.
Trustee McFall, can you weigh in on this? I'm curious.
I'm leaning to do the 2, just for the fact of, again, I'm so afraid of people just renting it and just, it becomes a party house. That's what I'm afraid of. I know. And I think, with discretion, with funerals and it's a great point. But there again, no, I think it should at least be 2. That's my opinion.
Trustee Unger?
I can go either way. I'm more concerned that our director of inspection is only going in there once.
Per year, you mean? Or
No, once.
once?
Yeah, I think that's because it's an occupancy permit. So is that correct, Mike?
Yeah.
Like how they wouldn't go to your house every year?
Yeah, it's similar to an occupancy, similar to a new business or something that would get a one-time review inspection, but they would not get an annual inspection. They would not get an inspection unless like I said, they will get an inspection from the health department. It's just not looking at specifically the type of building things that Paul would be looking at. But the health department, if they do see something, we would expect them to notify us of a potential building code concern.
And like I said, for long-term rentals, there's no inspections,
Right,
basically.
that's more.
So, and we've had a lot more issues with those than B&Bs.
I have to say, I was fine with the 2-day rental coming in here. Donna, if you've talked to some of our landlords that own these here, it's a little concerning that I don't want to impact their business because they are tight
We would
margins
be.
on it. I think that we need to take a look at, most of our Airbnbs are owned, we all know who owns them down here. They're Greendale residents. They may not live here all year round. They might be in Florida once in a while, but they're Greendale people. And if that is impacting, or if they feel it's going to impact their business, I'm not for doing that.
I think it's the last thing.
But I
we're gonna do.
certainly agree with Matt.
Right, they do
You know.
searches.
If we
Could
had
have by
any,
mistake,
Chief, if I could ask you a question. Have you had anything that you recall over the last year or so of party houses at any, or rowdy instances at any of our Airbnbs located in the village?
I can think of one, maybe off the top of my head, where we got called there for a noise complaint. I was aware of possible rental. Another community reached out and said that they had heard that some kids were going to be renting an Airbnb, but we reached out to the Airbnb owner and that did not occur. So we have not really had any problems. Maybe one that I can remember.
Anybody else want to weigh in on this particularly? Matt, anything else you want to add? You are.
No, I'd rather be proactive and give the chief, and us an ability to immediately deal with an issue versus have to go, if there's a party house, have to go through a zoning code change again, in order to implement this rule. Again, I don't think that the chief's going to be proactively looking to monitor this. Obviously, we can do it online and say, hey, you gotta have two-day minimum. That should be relatively easy. But I think most people aren't renting it for one day. My fear is that when I had an Airbnb, we weren't smart enough to know that the one-day rentals are, in our experience, all parties, a lot of underage kids. The parents rent them for the kids and then let the kids go. It's kind of crazy. So we voluntarily stopped it, obviously. And the police were called there twice. And this was a few years ago now. But I worry about the people who don't care and they maybe aren't here full time and they don't care about the neighbors or their house, being messy inside. And what it is. They'd rather make the higher fees on the one night stays, and the neighbors suffer for it. So I would just like to give us a way to shut it down quickly versus having to go through, I don't know, what probably the best case scenario, a 6-week process to modify the zoning code.
Trustee McFall?
I think Matt hit the nail on the head when, I think as a board, it's our duty to think about the neighbors on something like this and respect. I mean, they've been there longer than the Airbnb, so I think we have to look at again, curbing it and having the authority that we can nip this problem in the butt right away, so.
Trustee Olet?
If somebody wants a party that bad, they'll book it for 2 nights. Still not going to stop them from having a party. I mean, that doesn't make sense.
It's just less likely.
Costs a lot more money to do that. You're not paying
Not much.
double for a one-night stay.
Yeah.
Trustee Unger?
I guess I would just like to make a motion to approve the ordinance repealing section 17.363, regulation of tourist homes, and recreating and renaming section 17.363, short-term rentals, as presented.
We do have that motion on the floor
Yeah.
already.
It's already there.
So if there would be, if a board member would like to make a motion to amend, for an amendment to change it to remove the 2-night minimum, then you can do so.
I would like to make an amendment to remove the 2-night minimum just to 1 night, not to make a minimum. Let the
Did you want to
business owner-
second that or not? I'll second it. Okay, so we have an amended motion to vote on. Everything else stays the same. Everything you,
So you would vote just on this amendment. Do you want to remove the minimum? And then, depending on that, then you could vote on the main motion as amended or not amended.
okay, we have a motion with a second. Feedback on the second, on this motion?
Yeah, I just would like to add to that, because one of my concerns about the ordinance was the 40-mile that, so now they can live in Colorado and they don't have to have on-site people taking care of it. I'm not sure how you do that, but if an owner lives 40 miles away and they're taking care of it themselves because they're not hiring people, that's a whole nother issue with the one-night thing.
Was a whole issue, period.
But Didn't you say that we can't limit it?
Yeah, there was a court case in a town of Holland where a judge said that you cannot require a local agent if you have an owner that lives outside of a certain mileage.
So, can't do anything then.
Yeah, so that would speak to sticking with the 2 nights for me as well, because there's really nobody in the vicinity policing the area. It's all done online, is what I'm assuming.
Okay. I'd ask for a vote on the amended version.
Trustee Barbian?
Yes.
Trustee Sell?
No.
Trustee Unger?
No.
Trustee Beckmeyer?
No.
Trustee McFall?
No.
Trustee Olet?
Yes.
Motion fails. Now we have on the table the original motion with all the things that Mike mentioned, if the caveats with it, and no other changes. I will ask for motion on that.
You have a roll call.
Roll call.
Trustee Barbian?
Aye.
Trustee Sell?
Aye.
Trustee Unger.
Aye.
Trustee Beckmeyer.
Aye.
Trustee McFall.
Aye.
Trustee Olet.
No.
Okay, motion passes. Next item is the citizens' comments, first one for the night. There will be another one later in the agenda. Persons wishing to address the board are asked to state their name and address for the record and limit their comments to only one time, then limit their comments to 3 minutes or 5 minutes if representing a group of persons. Citizens' comments shall be limited to a period not to exceed 30 minutes. Public comments should be addressed to the village board as a body. Any questions or comments directed to an individual trustee or a staff person will be deemed out of order. Please note that the village board can only discuss matters listed on this agenda. So citizens' comments is open for anyone that wishes to line up on the podium. Don't all get in each other's way. Jeez, not much feedback. Okay. Going once, going twice. Citizens' comments is closed. Moving into our standing committee reports. Finance Committee. What a lengthy one here tonight. First item for the Finance Committee is discuss the necessary action and resolution to close the tax incremental district number 1. Those are TIFs for those. Do you want to give some background, then I'll make a motion.
Sure. So TIF District Number 1 was created in 2010. It's on the south side of the Southridge campus, so it encompasses the parking lot near Macy's as well as the southeast corner, the former Blood Center property. TID 1 was created to support the development of a 90-unit senior housing project, now the Berkshire Senior Living Community. The district was successful in generating some new assessed value. There was a base value, so the original assessed value of the property was $600,000, and it generated $12.3 million in new assessed value. And so at this time, the expenditure period of the TID has expired as of March. The TID will be paying off its final obligations this year. And so by April 15th, the village board would need to approve a resolution to start the closure of the TIF district. Then staff will do a final audit with the auditor. And then after the final audit, if there is any excess funds in that TID fund, it would be paid out or dispersed to the overlying taxing jurisdictions based on the percentage of the property tax bill. So for instance, the village is about 30% of the total property tax bill, so the village will receive a disbursement of 30% of any remaining funds. School district is another, I forget, 35, 40% of the tax bill. So school district, county, MATC, MMSD would all receive their share of any remaining funds. And so at this point right now, our early projections are about $150,000 would be excess increment in TID number 1. But overall, this was a fairly straightforward, clear-cut, really good success story for a TIF district. We had a good project, generated some new tax base, and so now we can close it, and that additional $12.3 million will go on to the assessment roll, and that will be reflected in the January 1st, 2025 assessment roll.
Awesome.
Thank you. Excellent.
Great.
Finance Committee would like to recommend to the village board to approve the resolution to terminate the tax incremental finance district number 1 as presented by the manager.
Second the motion.
Third, yeah. Any
Awesome.
comments in regards to this?
Awesome.
Yes, I make a comment. Waited a long time. This was the first one that we did, and it has been a success. We have other ones out there, but very proud to have been part of this and prior boards, and so it's very good news for the village. Any other comments? Matt, you have anything? In that case, I would like a roll call, please, on this.
Trustee Barbian.
Aye.
Trustee Sell.
Aye.
Trustee Unger.
Aye.
Trustee Beckmeyer.
Aye.
Trustee McFall.
Aye.
Trustee Olet.
Aye.
Excellent. Next one, Finance Committee. Discuss the necessary action to resolution to close tax incremental district number 2, FC 2512.
So TID 2, a little bit more of a winding road of a TIF district. So TID 2 encompasses the main mall area as well as the northeast portion of the Southridge campus. So it facilitated the development of the Marcus Theater in that northeast portion of the campus, and as well as facilitated some improvements within the interior and exterior of the mall itself. So TID 2 was also created in 2010. We had paid off all the obligations of that TID district using the taxes generated from the new development and improvements, and the expenditure period ends this year in December. So one of the, I guess, intricacies of TID 2 was that it was successful in maintaining a high assessed value for the mall itself. However, that as of last year's assessment year, the mall did contest the value and did provide the rent information to finally have that assessed value drop down. And so the ending assessed value will be a little bit below the starting assessed value of this TID. However, this TID was successful in, I would say, maintaining value rather than leaving us with new value. I would say it kept the value of the mall strong for a period of time, as well as added the Marcus Theater as a result. We were also able to use the funds generated in this TIF district for several projects, including some infrastructure projects within a half-mile radius that were paid from the TID increment rather than straight from the taxpayers. We also have a couple projects to try to finish out this year, including the legal fees associated with removing the easement restrictions that were preventing new development at the Boston Store property. And we also have some funds set aside for a Southridge master planning project, which we will be, we'll have a presentation at our next meeting from a firm that does master planning projects. So we'll have a couple projects still to complete this year, but by approving this resolution at this time, we'll start the closeout process. And at this point, even with the projects that we are looking to complete this year, are projecting an excess increment of about $2.4 million. And so that amount, again, would be paid out to the overlapping taxing jurisdictions, probably sometime next year after the final audit is complete and the expenditure period is over. So at this time, staff does recommend the resolution to close TID 2, and that would then start that process of the final audit and closing it out.
Thank you. Excellent presentation. Finance Committee moves to the Village Board to approve the resolution to terminate Tax Incremental Finance District Number 2 as presented by the manager.
Second motion?
Second.
Any other comments on this? Once again, another TIF, and we've been waiting a long time for these to close, and this one was again a success, and we were able to use money for other things that were needed instead of passing it on to the taxpayers. So very proud to have this part of it.
So I will add then, so that leaves, so TID 4, well, TID 3 is already closed. That was on the Boston Store property. TID 4 and TID 5 remain open. They have several years left. TID 4 is the Greenbelt Apartments, and TID 5 is the former Sears property. That has facilitated improvements to the Dick's Sporting Goods exterior area, those types of things. Those TIDs are both very healthy, but they do have a number of years left. And then we do have TID 6, which was more recently created for the Boston Store redevelopment, and so that has a number of years left as well. So we will still have those 3 districts, but just now in a couple years now, we've been able to close 1, 2, and 3 here fairly successfully.
Right, which is good.
Good deal.
I see no questions or comments, so I'll ask for a roll call, please.
Trustee Barbian?
Affirmative.
Trustee Sell?
Aye.
Trustee Unger?
Aye.
Trustee Beckmeyer?
Aye.
Trustee McFall?
Aye.
Trustee Alette?
Aye.
Well done. Number 3 for Finance Committee tonight is discussion necessary action to update the fees resolution, FC 2513.
So earlier in our meeting, we talked about the outdoor retail display and sales permit. So we have a fee schedule amendment proposed that would establish a fee for that permit, and that would be recommended at the $65, which is consistent with our base fee for other building and zoning related permits. The short-term rental permit was not previously on our fee schedule, though we had assessed by the application assessed a $100 fee. So we'd recommend adding that to the fee schedule so that is consistent. We also thought at this time we should probably remove the water utility rates from the fee schedule. That information becomes outdated when the Public Service Commission updates our rates. And so those rates are not set by fee schedule. So the recommendation is for the fee schedule to say the rates are set by the Public Service Commission. Those rates are available on the Public Service Commission's website, as well as on the village website and on the utility bills. And then lastly, an update to reflect our current stormwater utility fee, which was approved on February 4th at $24.14 per ERU.
Thank you. Finance Committee will make a motion for the village board to approve the resolution to amend the fee schedule as presented by the manager.
Second the motion?
Comments, questions? I see none. I'll ask for a roll call.
Trustee Barbian?
Aye.
Trustee Sell?
Aye.
Trustee Unger?
Aye.
Trustee Beckmeyer?
Aye.
Trustee McFall?
Aye.
Trustee Olet?
Motion passes. Number 4 for the Finance Committee. Discuss the necessary action on a resolution designating officials authorized to declare official intent under reimbursement bond regulations, FC 2514. It's a little bit of a change.
So this is kind of a housekeeping thing that we've done in the past. So we are planning to do a borrowing this year, probably at one of our May meetings, will be approved. But we'll need the funds, the debt proceeds for the water utility project that we'll be doing this year, as well as for our capital equipment expenses this year. And so by adopting this resolution now will allow us to reimburse ourselves from those debt proceeds for any expenses, particularly relating to the water utility project. So we already recently approved bids for that project. That project is going to be starting up here sometime this month. And so this will allow us to use the debt proceeds from the borrowing that we intend to do in May or maybe in June to reimburse ourselves for any of those water utility expenses that we intend to use the debt proceeds for. So under the U.S. Treasury regulations, for tax exempt obligations, we would need to have a reimbursement resolution in place prior to incurring those expenses.
Very good update. Finance Committee is making a motion for the village board to approve the resolution designating officials authorized to declare official intent under the reimbursement bond regulations as presented by the manager.
Second the motion?
Any questions of the manager in regards to this? I see none, so I'd ask for a roll call.
Trustee Barbian?
Aye.
Trustee Sell?
Aye.
Trustee Unger?
Aye.
Trustee Beckmeyer?
Aye.
Trustee McFall?
Aye.
Trustee Olet?
Aye.
Motion passes. Number 5 on the Finance Committee tonight is the internal audit reviews of bills presented for payment. Trustee Feckmeyer, you had it this month?
Yes, I did. I requested several.
Go ahead. I wanted to give background. We have a lot of people in the audience this time. Every month, we rotate among the trustees to randomly pull ACH invoices, checks, and P-card purchases, and take a look at the documentation behind it to make sure it's met all audit procedures, and we rotate this around. And now I turn it over to Trustee Feckmeyer.
So I requested several examples from each category from Stephanie, and she provided them almost instantaneously, very quickly. I had quite a few questions on some of the things, some just for personal information, but some questions that I had. And again, she got back to me almost immediately, answered all my questions, even talked to the chief, Chief Rosenau, about a question I had about a police charge that was on there, something that went to the police department. So she even talked to him and got that answer from me. So thanks, Stephanie. She did a great job. And everything else was good, in order.
Thank you. Any questions for Trustee Feckmeyer? You have the honor next month.
Yay.
Okay, there is.
It'll be just like Colleen's.
Except you come in here.
Yeah.
You come in and go
I
through the
come in here,
paperwork.
yes, and again, as always,
He does.
so
Give him an
Stephanie,
office upstairs.
Stephanie does a great job,
That's not a bad idea.
and her crew.
Thank you, and thank you, Stephanie, for providing information. Next item is approval for accounts payable for payment. Finance Committee is recommending for the village board to approve the accounts payable checks number 62748 through 62841 in the amount of $636,123.53 Also to approve the ACH payments for the month in the amount of $920,651.14, and the P-card purchases in the amount of $71,874.20 for a total monthly distribution of $1,628,648.87.
Second the motion?
I have a second. We've all had a chance to look at these and ask any questions. Is there any questions that have been unresolved that you wish to ask, Stephanie? Matt? Nothing? In that case, I will ask for a roll call on this.
Trustee Barbian?
Aye.
Trustee Sell?
Aye.
Trustee Unger?
Aye.
Trustee Beckmeyer?
Aye.
Trustee McFall?
Aye.
Trustee Olet?
Aye.
Compare bills, good deal. Next item in Finance Committee is accounts status, February 28th, 2025. Stephanie?
I just wanted to give a quick update about 2024 first. The auditors were here in person and virtual the last couple of weeks, and I just want to let you guys know that everything went smoothly, and we're continuing to wrap things up to put together the 24 financial statements. And then back to the status of accounts. Through February, 74% of property taxes have been collected, which totals about $28.8 million. Last week, we received the lottery credit payment from the state, which totaled $936,000, and that will be distributed to the other taxing jurisdictions on April 15th. And then another update at our department, we'll start working on the first quarter water bills tomorrow, and those bills will be mailed at the end of the month. And I can answer any questions.
Overall, the village looks healthy?
Yep, as of February.
Very good. Questions for Stephanie? Thank you for the update, appreciate it. That concludes the Finance Committee. We're going to move into other standing committees. Trustee Sell for Planning Commission, did you cover everything, or do you have anything to add?
Yeah, that was it.
Okay. Library Board, Trustee Unger.
Yes, so at its March meeting, the library board reviewed its 3-year plan, and the library has completed its marketing objectives, which include ensuring that broadest possible audiences are aware of library programming, such as using the Village Views, the LED signs, school district weeklies, visits to schools by librarians, marketing on Facebook, and more. This is the plan, and so this is something the library is working on, and then the library board discusses periodically. So we had a discussion about that in March. And then I would like to share a patron compliment. So after asking if the library had a Spanish section and reviewing our adult Spanish collection, we received this compliment. You have some really good books there. I've been to some other libraries, and their Spanish collections are mostly fluff stuff. I knew the collection depends on people checking things out, so I hope they do, and that you can grow the selection even more. So we're happy to get that compliment. I know they're working on like a world language collection for adults and children. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Great.
Questions for Trustee Unger? Nice update. Public Works Committee, Trustee McFall, floor is yours.
We did not have a meeting, but I have some tips, or not tips, but some information coming from the director. The community center playground equipment was delivered this week. We are working with Lee Recreation for installing. The pavilion at the community center updates are almost complete. Rolling shutters, new fixtures, and bathroom changing tables have been installed, so that's great.
Nice.
And construction notices have been delivered to all the properties abutting the road and water main rehabilitation for the spring and summer. Work will begin next week. That's it from Public
Excellent
Works.
update.
So,
Excellent. It's good that pavilion is finally being
yeah.
repaired and
Yeah,
upgraded to its past glory that it used to have.
right.
Thank you. Board of Health. We did not have a meeting, but I've managed to get a hold of some updates so that I can have a report. Yeah, I know you're glad of it. One of the things, the main thing for the health, again, they're involved in something all the time. That's why I think it's important to make an update all the time. But the downtown market is not that far away, and they're spending a lot of time. Health Department, along with Jackie Schweitzer, has taken over the market, and they've been working on it. They have brought along several flyers, if I could pass these around, for the upcoming green markets or markets. And again, the green market this time is going to be moved different down the way. It's going to be from Schoolway to Crocus Court, still on Broad Street. And it'll go over into the gazebo. So they've been working for that, and they've got the flyers here, which if there's any extras, pass it into the audience. Thank you. And you can get any of these over at the Health Department. I encourage you to stop in. You can pass mine to there too. Thank you.
You can become a friend of the market. It's on the
Yes.
information.
You can become a friend of the market to sign up and partake in the market and help sponsor it. And we could certainly use the help to keep this market going. We're in a very tough competitive mode with Greenfield and Oak Creek. Everyone in this room agrees Greendale's is better, but, you know, we are a little slanted. A few updates about the market. Over 70 vendors applied for space and dates at the market. 70. That's up. The market is participating in Wisconsin food share programs, including the WIC Senior Farmers Market Nutrition Program, which is called SNAP, EBT, and Milwaukee Match. And SNAP, EBT is the cards for people that have to buy food. They can buy produce down here, and that is a good thing to get that into their hands, particularly with the no additives in any of the stuff that you get down there that you can get in the supermarket. So, otherwise, they still are involved in everything that goes on with the Health Department for every event coming forward. They will be involved in downtown and in the Pet Palooza that's coming up, and anything else. Please stop in and see them. That concludes the Health Department. I still would like to pass it over to the subcommittee for Community Alliance, which is Trustee Unger.
Yes, Community Alliance of Hales Corners and Greendale, as Trustee Barbie mentioned, is a work group of the village's health department. Its mission is to reduce substance misuse with a focus on vaping, marijuana, and alcohol. I have 3 updates. The Anxious Generation Community Conversation Discussion. The Anxious Generation is a best-selling book right now. That discussion will take place Wednesday, April 9th from 6 to 8 at the Host Tower. The book discusses how social media and other technologies have contributed to mental health issues in children and adolescents. Public service announcements will again run this year during the Milky Way drive-in movies and the Milkmen baseball games, featuring the Small Talks campaign. I've talked about this in the past. Small Talks are casual conversations between parents or guardians and their children about the dangers of underage drinking, and it is recommended that those conversations start at age 8. Amanda, who was at a previous meeting, she is our health department intern who did that great presentation, will be joined by one of our Greendale police officers, I believe it's Officer Karchevsky, to give a presentation to the Public Celebrations Committee again this year about safe alcohol serving at village events.
Excellent update. Any questions? Really good involvement, and like I said, that's a subgroup of the Health Department. They do all the stuff on their own with the help of the Health Department. We also have another subgroup, Healthy Mind, Healthy Greendale, and trustee Feckmeyer, they did not have a meeting, and so you don't have an update, correct? Good. Public Health, Welfare, and Safety. Trustee Sell, we just had a meeting, but anything else to add?
Nothing more.
Okay. That meeting took place right before the village board meeting here. It was for any suggestions from the residents for safety concerns, stop signs, or traffic concerns, or just anything that you wanted to bring before the board that we can look at for the upcoming year to implement things that the residents have brought forward to us. Because we do take what residents bring forward to us very seriously, and we want to implement them as much as possible. And so that took place just before. Park and Recreation Department is trustee McFall.
We did not have a meeting, but I do call Ryan and ask him, is there anything you want to be kind of said before our next meeting? And knowing Ryan, the person he is, I have like a Bible right here on my phone. But I will go through some of them that he just asked for me to kind of like go over. They're building a new playground, of course, at the community center, as you heard earlier, and also at J.C. Park in May and June of this year. Also, too, is that Summer Community Learning Center Education and Recreation Guide will be mailed to residents over the next few weeks. Park and Rec registration began online, or will begin online on Saturday, May 3rd at 8 a.m. For Greendale residents. In-person and phone registration for Greendale residents begins Tuesday, May 6th. Non-resident registration beginning on Wednesday, May 7th. So if you have any questions, please give Ryan a call. Also, too, is just a note that we're both excited. He said we're both excited and bittersweet to announce that Kathy Fern will be retiring from the impressive 40 years of dedication to building and shaping our child care programs. Kathy was a cornerstone for our community, and I know she'll be deeply missed, or greatly missed, just because of, like you said, her years of service. So I understand here, it says we are pleased to share that Deb Kanitz will be accepting a position as the child care director. Debbie is really a great woman. I know Debbie personally. She'll do a great job, I know that. Also, too, Summer Venture Club programs has new registration process, so if you have any questions, feel free to give Ryan a call on that. And again, I mean, I could go on and, but I'll wait till the next meeting, so, yeah, so that's it.
A great update. Any questions for trustee McFall? A lot of stuff that's Park and Rec is involved in.
Park and Rec, Ryan.
Just do a great
Ryan's
job.
doing a fabulous job. So he had some big shoes to fill, but he's filling it quite well, so. And there again, I asked him for a few things, I got a Bible, so.
Appreciate the update.
Yep.
Next committee is Public Celebrations, trustee Olet and Feckmeyer.
We didn't have a
We
meeting.
didn't have a meeting, but I have to say that the 4th of July parade is coming along nicely. There's a lot of registrants registering on site, and Rachel's doing a really great job on that, so we're going to have a great 4th of July parade.
That's good to know.
Yep.
She also had.
4th of July at 9:30.
She
Great.
headed up the sensory Easter egg hunt for kids with sensitivities, and that went really, really well. She did a beautiful job on that, too.
Thank you. Any questions for Public Celebrations Committee? Don't see any. Under old business, board and committee appointments and resignations. A lot of that's coming up in our next couple of meetings, but that's for President Zaborowski to decide. So I won't do it, even though I got appointed president.
Yes, you did. You can change anything you want right now.
Under new business, BOT 2536. Discuss and necessary action on an ordinance to repeal section 141, Historical Commission, and rename and recreate section 141, Historic Preservation Commission. We've had a lot of meetings on this topic prior to this, and I'll let the manager fill you in with some information.
So we have, there's two separate ordinances in your packet. Both of them are coming out of our prior meeting as the Historical Commission back on, I think, March 4th. I'm just pulling up my notes here. Sorry about that. Yep, so on March 4th, the Village Board, as the Historical Commission, met with representatives from the Greendale Historical Society, worked really well together on some changes to our Historic Preservation Commission ordinances. So currently, under under Section 1.41, the village has a Historical Commission, and their role is identified as essentially they created or they helped create the Historical Society back in the 70s. They haven't met all these years. Currently, they would serve as the backup to the Historical Society. Well, at this time, again, staff is recommending, and the recommendation came out of March 4th, we can repeal the Historical Commission, and then in its place, in a little bit different role, create a separate Historic Preservation Commission, which would be HPC, which more specifically has a role relating to historic properties and structures. So these would be properties and structures that are locally designated as historic H on our zoning map. And currently, we only have a couple properties that are designated H. We do have a good part of the whole village that's nationally registered as a national landmark. But this is different. This is our H designated local properties. And currently, only the Jeremiah Curtin House and Trimborn Farm are the two parcels that were designated H. We did research and found this was done because at the time in the 1990s, the state mandated us to have a local designation for any state registered properties, which those were. So we talked about creating the separate HPC, would be made up of 9 members, which would be appointed by the village board. Each member would serve 3-year terms, so they would start on staggered terms. We would, similar to other municipalities, to the greatest extent possible, make that HPC comprised of individuals with professional expertise. So we'd be prioritizing architectural history, construction, planning, archaeology, those types of things, to try to build some expertise around people that could review alterations to historic properties. And so the duties of the HPC would be to carry out responsibilities that already are set forth in Chapter 23. And so those relate to those H designated properties. We're putting that the HPC would meet at least annually. And then again, this historical commission, the previous historical commission would be abolished and replaced with this HPC. So it is recommended that the decision to approve this ordinance would be contingent on approving the next ordinance, because that kind of goes hand in hand with this one.
Thank you. Questions for the manager on this? We've had a lot of meetings coming up to this point in regards to this. But any new questions from the last meeting? Trustee Unger.
I have a couple suggestions for this first ordinance that I'd like, the trustees to consider.
Hey.
What? That wasn't one of them.
Special guest.
So the first one, I think, is probably the most important, and you may or may not agree with me, but I think that the new HPC should meet at least quarterly instead of just once a year, because I feel we're going to be back in the same boat with a committee that doesn't meet very often, people on the committee may not realize they're part of the committee if they only meet once a year. And Mr. Manella told us at a previous meeting that one of the things that they wanted to do was to provide education and to assist with grant writing. And I think if they met more frequently, they could be of better service to our community. So that's the first thing I think should be changed. The other thing I think should be changed is the officers, right now it says a president and a recording secretary. I think they should add, or we should require a vice president. If the president can't be there, who's going to run the meeting? I think it should have a president, vice president, and recording secretary. And then I would like to see that the agendas and the minutes be published on the website. So often there's committees, especially ones that don't meet frequently. Even if they meet 4 times a year or once a year, they should publish their agendas and their minutes on the website so we can all see what they've been doing. Because now the Historic Commission did include all of us as trustees, and if we're not going to have the Historic Commission and we're going to have this new HPC, it will only involve one trustee. And so I think for communication purposes and for village residents, they should be very transparent in publishing agendas and minutes on the website.
I would have no objection to any of that.
Trustee Fickmeyer.
I think we did just, when we, in our discussion, we talked about the grant writing and whatever second point that was.
Educating, education.
Yep, that was more of a historic society, what they would be function and not what this commission would be. Isn't that correct?
It says number 5 is to educate the public.
Yeah, so the Chapter 23, the role of this HPC primarily is to consider requests for certificates of appropriateness, which are when someone wants to make an alteration to an historic property that's H designated, they would need a certificate of appropriateness from the HPC. So that's their main role, is to review those requests and to consider approving them.
Mm-hmm.
The second role would be to consider recommending additional properties to be designated H, which they would recommend, and it would come to the village board. So that's kind of a second role. A third role is to recommend guidelines for different types of maintenance of historic buildings, so they can make recommendations to change the rehabilitation guidelines for your original home, or they could they could recommend guidelines for maintaining Village Hall or other properties that may be additionally designated H properties. Then additional kind of functions under Chapter 23 are education around this. So there's these other roles that they could be doing for more education, or there are grants that are through the Wisconsin Historical Society that relate directly to your designated properties that they could become involved with. The issue that I guess I brought up at that March 4th meeting is just making sure that by meeting quarterly, they're not starting to get into areas where the Historical Society is already very involved with, and then they're stepping on each other's toes, that type of thing. So as long as we're cognizant and staff will try, and then the trustees should as well, let's make sure that, they're staying within those certain functions outlined in Chapter 23.
Right, because I see that as crossing lines a little bit.
And that's,
well.
And that's why some HPCs are very active. They will meet very regularly and do some of these types of initiatives. They may not have active historical societies there, but some HPCs just meet kind of as needed. Again, I don't think it's an issue as long as we kind of make sure that they're sticking to the scope of their.
Well, the difference is that we have such an active historic society, and
Yeah.
they are doing all that, as, in my opinion, well, they should be. I think we should stick to the property.
Yeah, so this really specifically relates to properties and structures. And that's the main thing. When we get into other types of historic preservation, artifacts, stories, those types of things, that's not in their purview. That's Historical Society.
So
I'd like to make a motion to approve the ordinance repealing section 1.41, creating the Historical Commission, and renaming and recreating section 1.41 Historic Preservation Commission, subject to the approval of the ordinance recreating chapter 23, including the suggestions by Trustee Unger. But I will throw out, maybe instead of quarterly, can we do it every 4 months? So it's 3 times a year. Just because it's sometimes difficult to get people that their availability to line up, and 9 members, I don't know, it might be tough to do it quarterly, so maybe we do it every 4 months.
And
Can I get a
maybe-
second on that motion?
Yeah,
I'll second that.
and then down the road, they can decide, let's do it twice a year, once a year, but I think just to get the ball rolling and initiate things.
So
Good idea, that
so
would
at least 3 times a year. Okay, so the changes, and correct me if I'm wrong, so the amendments would be including that they would meet at least 3 times a year, that there'd be an officer, a vice president, and that there would be minutes and agendas posted on the website. I don't know that we would necessarily put that into the ordinance. I think that's our normal practice. I don't think we have any other, I don't think we put that elsewhere. So I mean, you can include that in the motion, but I don't think it needs to be codified in the ordinance unless you would specifically want it to be, which would not be the same as other.
With the trustee that's assigned to this committee, just like we just went through all our other committees, if they have a meeting, would be updating the rest of us through that mechanism.
Yeah, exactly. But it's our normal practice, and we have it. Some committees lag behind because they meet sporadically. That the agendas the agendas always should be online, but the minutes don't always get put up there, especially if there's a long wait until they get approved. So it's our normal practice. It doesn't, but it doesn't need to be in the ordinance that happens.
I'd like to make a comment to Elaine. Those were excellent suggestions, and I agree with what they're saying. I think that those are things that would be missed. You're right, if a president is gone, then who runs the meeting? So, and other questions or comments dealing with this? I'd ask for a roll call on this first one.
Trustee Barbian?
Aye.
Trustee Sal?
Aye.
Trustee Unger?
Aye.
Trustee Buckmeyer?
Aye.
Trustee McFall?
Aye.
Trustee Olet?
Aye.
Very good. The second one sort of dovetails in BOT 2537. I move to approve the ordinance repealing Chapter 23, regulating historic preservation, and recreating Chapter 23, historic preservation as presented.
Second the motion?
This one pretty much, since we did the first one, has to follow.
Right.
So, is there any discussion on this? Otherwise,
I would just note, so one thing very important about this second ordinance is that it does officially designate Village Hall and the Host Tower as those H designated properties. So like I said, currently only Trimborn Farm, Jeremiah Curtin House are H designated. This would add Village Hall and Host Tower, which at times, looking at the past minutes, it appears that the village intended to do that, but it never actually officially got done. So this will officially do that. This will also clarify, or it would grant the village final authority to approve the designation of new historic designated properties. It would also grant the village board final authority on adopting operating guidelines for historic properties. I should also note that we previously discussed the idea of the former police and fire building being designated as an H designated property. However, I would recommend that would come out of that would go through the process outlined in Chapter 23, because that is not a government asset right now or owned by the village, that should go through the formal process through the HPC of whether or not that property should be locally designated.
and question on that, I'm all for that, because I think that'd be the first thing that I would hope this committee would look at. But that would also include for other potential properties, that the barn on Loomis Road, Hauser statue, most of the middle school is still original. Many of us went to that school, and the backside of it is 1938. And so I would hope that so this committee could pursue not just the fire and police committee, but fire police building, they can go into other areas.
Yep, yeah, that's correct. And so we were not suggesting going that far at this point. I think a lot of discussion needs to happen to carefully consider those things and what it's going to mean for those properties. Because you place this designation on the middle school, and then all of a sudden that leads to a lot of steps that need to take place before they could do even certain basic maintenance. So there's a lot more discussion to be had, I think, on those types of things. But I think we're all comfortable today in saying Village Hall, Host Tower, Village is going to do its part to follow the what comes out of this process to maintain it and preserve the historical, look and intent of those properties.
Agreed. If there's, Trustee Younger.
I'm sorry, I have a couple questions, please. So just so I'm understanding this new committee, if Village Hall got hit by a tornado or suffered some major storm damage, the village would have to complete a certificate of appropriateness and submit it to the HPC for approval to do the repairs. They would be the committee, that 9-member committee, to approve the repairs, correct? That's how this works.
Yeah, or a recent example would be, we just did, we replaced a bunch of the brick and mortar on the front of the building. That would most likely go through the HPC to review, make sure that it's, using the brick and mortar that is original to the building. We did do a similar process. We submitted it to the Wisconsin Historical Society, and they did a review, but this now would create a local review to have oversight over that type of stuff.
Okay. So for Trimborn Farm and the Jeremiah Curtin House, if they have a similar situation, do they come to the HPC?
Yeah.
Okay. And are we going to put together the application form? I didn't see that anywhere, and I see that, like Milwaukee Historical Society or the Milwaukee Historic Preservation Commission has a form. This is what we have to create, or do we have one?
I'm not aware that we have a form.
Okay.
That doesn't mean there wouldn't be a process. I'm not aware of there being a request in any time recently.
Okay.
If, in the absence of a form, they would put together in writing their request and address everything in the ordinance.
Okay.
But I think now, if we're going to have more of a process and to designate more properties, it'd be good to have a form.
Okay.
Are you done with your question?
I think I'm done. Thank you.
Trustee Olet?
How will we select people to be on this committee?
So we're working right now on our spring Village Views newsletter, so we can put an announcement in there. We did recently create a more formal form document online. Previously, it says you can submit a letter of interest. Now, in order to kind of make sure we're getting, enough information and consistent information, we have a form where people can go to and signify that they're interested in serving on which committees, and this is already added to that one. At least it says it's a pending or possibly new committee. So we'll direct people to go to that form, or they can come to Village Hall and we can get that information from them. And then typically we go through then the village president, who has the authority to present those recommendations to the village board. So we'll give him the list and the information. He'll make recommendations to the village board, and then you guys can decide to approve those.
Sounds good.
Excellent. Good question.
Are they going to, are we working on that now to get this committee formed? After today, are we going to start moving forward?
Well, it'll be,
on
like I
it?
said, it'll be in the Village Views. We can put a post out like on social media. But certainly, as you guys are out and about or talk to people, let them know, hey, are you interested in serving on this new Historic Preservation Commission? Again, we are trying to prioritize those different types of expertise areas, so we have people who can properly review historic properties and things. But yeah, certainly help get the word out. As soon as after today, you can go online and submit that form. It's available on the, I think it's linked from the village president page, but you can also find it from a shortcut I can share with you as soon as I find it. But it'll be in the newsletter as well.
And the newsletter is April?
Yes, so probably next week we will finalize it, and it should be going out in mailboxes by around April 20th.
Matt, any questions?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay. If I see no other questions, which I don't, I would like to have a roll call on this item.
Trustee Barbian?
Aye.
Trustee Sal?
Aye.
Trustee Unger?
Aye.
Trustee Fuckmeyer?
Aye.
Trustee McFall?
Aye.
Trustee Olet?
Great. Good discussion on that. Next item is the officer reports, village managers report.
Nothing to add other than thank you, our clerk and our poll workers who are still here working. Today's election, it's not your typical spring election. It's been a lot of voters. Anything you wanna add to that?
We had a little over 30% in absentee this time around, and then I just got some of the numbers from our polling locations. I'm sorry, give me 1 second to log in. It looks like we had 1,586 so far at 7 o'clock at Highland View. And then 2,139 voters at high school, and then they actually did 2,132 for the presidential, so they're like 7 voters more than they did in the presidential high school.
Wow.
Well, that's a great turnout.
Then the presidential primary,
No, the presidential election.
Are you serious?
Yes.
more voters than the presidential
Yep, at the polling location.
at the polling location.
At the polling location.
Interesting, okay.
Wow,
It was Randy.
that's interesting.
It's been a busy day.
Yeah, really.
Good. Everyone's voices should.
Village President's Report, I'm going to pass on that one. This brings up the last citizens' comments. Persons willing to address the village board are asked to state their name, address, and limit their comments to only one time, and limit their comments to only 3 minutes or 5 minutes if representing a group of persons. Citizens' comments shall be limited to a period not to exceed 15 minutes. Public comments should be addressed to the village board as a body. Any questions or comments directed to an individual, trustee or staff person will be deemed out of order. Please note that the village board can only discuss matters that are on this agenda. I'm going to open citizens' comments now.
Good evening, I'll move this forward a little. Good evening, Kathleen Vincent, 6803 West Grange Avenue. I'm speaking tonight in my capacity as the county supervisor. I'm glad we've got a number of people here in the crowd tonight too. Mike and I have been in conversations along with the Milwaukee County and the Milwaukee County Historic Society. I'm in the process of trying to schedule a public listening session for the residents of Greendale regarding Trimborn Farm and the future of Trimborn Farm and the Jeremiah Curtin properties. As many of you may know, the parks have been behind in maintenance for many years now with maintenance of our county parks. Trimborn Farm happens to be the only county historic park in Milwaukee County, and they are approximately $1 million in deferred maintenance right now. The county just doesn't have the bandwidth to make the repairs that are inevitably going to need to happen at that property. So this listening session is going to be for public input to allow the county as well as the Historic Society to come together and listen to the needs and concerns of Greendale residents in particular. It'll be open to other county residents, but because this is in our backyard, I'm just going to say it, I don't want to see a situation like we got into with the Rock and neighbors there. We want to make sure that the neighbors are good with the future of what's going to happen there. So we were going to try, as Mike and I talked about, for May for the listening session, but there's not a rush at this point, so it looks like we're going to push back to about mid-June for this. I will work with you, Mike, to get a date firmed up, hopefully even before your newsletter goes out on the 20th, so that we can start letting residents know. My legislative assistant and I will be going to doors, distributing flyers, letting the public know that there will be this listening session and input. What they're actually looking for is public-private partnership, much like what we see at the Red Barn on Loomis, that the Emmons McNaught family is taking care of there. They are going to be looking for suggestions for possible uses of that property so that we can potentially get some sort of revenue flow coming in there. And I just really want to see this property maintained. It's on the National Historic Registry, so it's not like we can just let it go, but it is going right now. The greenhouse and bunkery is, it's not as bad as it was when I first stepped in as supervisor. They thought it had a year to collapse practically, but it's not as looking as bad. But the barns themselves are aging and there hasn't been a lot of repair to them. So basically I want to make this public announcement tonight so anyone who's listening knows that there will be input. Please reach out to my office as well. If you can't make that meeting when it comes, I'll try to put a survey out through my e-newsletters as well. But this really means a lot to me. I care about the historic preservation of Greendale, and I know every single one of you sitting up here cares about the future, especially something like Trimborn Farm, which is a real gem to have in our community. As I said, it is the only historic park in Milwaukee County, and I think it would be a shame to see it go to waste. I don't want to get into all the ideas that they're floating right now because they really want the public to have say, but you can only imagine types of uses for that property, much like they're considering at the Red Barn. So if anyone has questions for me, please reach out, and if suggestions or ideas, this is definitely for community input. That is my job to represent this community, and I take that very seriously when it comes to this property. And I want to make sure it gets in the right hands. As you talked about rentals and things today, we need to be careful about the neighbors, especially those that are abutting it right in the G section over there. And just in general, I mean, they do want to keep the art fair going every year. That's been a very popular revenue builder in the county. But you know, it's just at a point where the county cannot keep up with the maintenance on this type of a property. So I'm just putting that out there for you tonight. I know, Lane, you mentioned Trimborn a little bit before, and Jeremiah Curtin. So there is a future for that area, and we as citizens of Greendale, I think, are going to have a big say in that and make sure that we determine what direction that's going to go. So I won't, obviously, it's not on the agenda to be posted tonight, but Mike, I am going to, my legislative assistant was out today. We met on March 17th to discuss this with the Economic Division project manager, as well as Ben Barbera from the County Historic Society, and Erica Goublé is who I'm working with, in case you're wondering names. But long story short, I take this seriously. We will put our efforts into making sure that the future of Trimborn is what we need. Thank you. I didn't know if I had extra time, but so I can't take questions tonight, but if there's anything that any of you trustees have that you want to put out to me, please send me emails, and the same goes for the public. Thank you.
Thank you for the update. Other citizens' comments?
Joe Russ, 16800 West Shuttle Drive, New Berlin, representing 559997 Basswood Street. I would like to see the Hauser statue get the H status, if the village can work with the school board when it becomes appropriate. With the amount of work and funds that have gone into it, that statue should be good for another 30, 40 years. I hope I don't have to make another donation in my lifetime, but I think that's definitely a structure that warrants being an H designation. Regarding the TIFs, don't pat yourself on the back too much for closing two of them, because the first one you closed was number 3. And that was the Boston store one. $2 million, even though the company was at the time more than $500 million in debt. This entity gave them a $2 million TIF. How did that work out for you? Part of a TIF is supposed to be the payback to the community, not just the financial part, but the benefit of the community. Boston store has been closed since 2018. Now it's been basically destroyed inside by various training and exercises and so forth. But it's $2 million, which taxpayers' money that was blown. Now you're going to be putting another 8.8, or I'd say $9 million into it again. Deja vu all over again. With an entity that, according to a recent Journal Sentinel article, had someone doing their rentals and doing price fixing. I don't think a very good screening process was done. It appears that Wauwatosa has been doing a far better job. They even got a retail store to go into their former Boston store building. And if you've been past Brookfield Square, you notice that one is torn down, but there's still piles of gravel out there. So demolishing the building is going to take a long time. Second, and finally, on a slightly more humorous note, since nobody brought it up today because it's a date, I think the Boston Store redevelopment is just the greatest thing in the world, and you guys are doing a great job. April Fool.
Other comments? Citizens?
Jim Birmingham, 7325 Edge Hill Road, Greendale. First of all, I want to say about the TIFs, on being on this board, when those TIFs first went down, it was a very hard decision for this village and for Greendale to do those TIFs at the time. I want to thank the boards that I've been on and this board for continuing this process. It is something that has built Southridge over the years. It has made us strong in Greendale. It was one of our biggest tax credits that we had going on, and I think this village did very well on sticking with this. We have these two down, and we have several to go, and I think we should thank this board and past boards for continuing to eye this up. So that's my first part. Real quickly on the Historical Commission, I want to thank the board for your input on doing that. I think whether it's one meeting or 3 meetings, I think that board will do very well, and especially after it gets started. I would like to mention to everybody that's here to keep in mind that you're looking for people, as we have in those categories. If you have somebody that wants to put those in, get the word out now so that we can get that going. I know the village has your way to get it out, but put those out there, and if you have people that you want to recommend, talk to them right away so we can get those things rolling. I think that'll be great, so, and thank you. That's what I have.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. Other citizens' comments, please? I see none, so I'm going to close citizens' comments. Citizens' comments is closed. That concludes tonight's Board of Trustee meeting. I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Any comments on that?
No, don't filibuster.
Don't filibuster?
Let's
Okay.
close this up.
All right, I'd like a roll call.
Trustee Barbian?
Aye.
Trustee Sell?
Aye.
Trustee Unger? Trustee Feckmeyer?
Aye.
Trustee McFall?
Aye.
Trustee Olet?
Aye.
Whose phone is that?
Not mine. Jim's, I think.
Oh.